Can self-care hold us back from true happiness? Has the recent craze on self-care turned us into fragile individuals? Can self-care even be damaging? We're going to look at this. This is the Paul Martin Show. So welcome. My name is Paul Martin. I am a lifelong humanitarian. I have formerly studied philosophy, and I've spent most of my career analyzing and studying the nature of physical, emotional, and spiritual suffering. And I am particularly interested in why so many people in rich cultures and wealthy cultures and Western cultures, where we're living in the greatest time in human history, why is there a lack of fulfillment? My mission is to help people understand. That's what this channel is about, and to help end what I call the order of ignorance and injustice in the world. Today, we're talking about self-care. And I want to talk first about happiness. We have to be in agreement on happiness. Not all people are. I want to refer to my favorite philosopher, Aristotle. Aristotle wrote 2,500 years ago, probably the most seminal work on ethics. And he starts the work with happiness. He starts the work with what is happiness. And there's debate, and he rejects hedonism. He rejects this philosophy back then that the ultimate good, the ultimate aim, the ultimate destination for human life is physical pleasure. And Aristotle just says, yeah, it's important, but we don't esteem people that live like the beasts, that eat, sleep, and play, right? He says nobody ever admires those people because human beings are different. We actually have capacities and capabilities. We have the capacity for courage, or the capacity for temperance, or the capacity for kindness. And so he says a happy person, and this is the point, happiness really is more of a kind of life. And I think we all agree. It's the kind of life where one is flourishing, not because they, went to Cabo for a week or they have tons of money, but they're living a kind of life rooted in virtues, rooted in values. Yeah, they have physical pleasure and all of those nice things. And so that's the definition we're going to use. Now, I want to talk about physical pleasure, and I want to use this philosophical distinction between necessity and sufficiency, right? And so happiness requires physical pleasure. And happiness also requires self-care. So hear me right now. I will be critical about self-care in a minute and the self-care industrial complex in a minute. But I do want to say that self-care is necessary for happiness. It's just not sufficient. Kind of like if you think of air. Air, oxygen, or water is necessary for happiness, but it's not sufficient for happiness. And I want to say the same thing about self-care as I would about water and sleep. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. And I want to get out of the way that I personally am very committed to my own self-care. Very quickly, I am a practitioner of Bikram yoga, hot yoga. I have practiced for over 12 years. Every single day, I practice fixed eye meditation. It's remarkable for anxiety. In my life, I have seen psychiatrists, I have seen psychologists, I've been on meds. I think that we need to get help with professionals when we need it. And recently, last year, I did EMDR. EMDR is the greatest therapy to deal with any kind of trauma, whether it be developmental trauma or other types. And so hear me say, self-care is important. And for anyone watching, I just want to let you know, these are just my opinions. This is not professional advice. I advise anybody who's dealing with real issues, mental health issues, to go see a professional. There is help out there. So self-care is an industry. You see it, I see it. You scroll through Instagram or whatever, there are more self-care businesses, self-care apps, diet apps, workout apps, mental health apps, articles, books than we've ever seen in the history of mankind. And the point I want to make is simply this. Simply reading, simply buying the app, simply starting the diet, simply accumulating the information by itself gives us a dopamine hit. This is a fact. Reading articles on wellness produce dopamine hits in us. There's a phrase called action faking. I don't know if you've heard of it before. But simply or merely reading the articles do not improve our lives. And that's the point. We need to understand that. And the marketers understand that the self-care proliferation of articles and apps and new kind of workouts or new types of foods to eat or new types of foods to not eat, and all these articles have an addictive quality by themselves. You and I know it. We want to be well. We want to be happy. So what do? We consume more and more and more and more information on getting well, but that doesn't make us well. And I think it's very, very important that we understand self-care to be in itself a multi-billion dollar industry or trillion-dollar industry. I recently read, trying to get us finally to achieve the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, the ultimate nirvana. And that self-care modality, sadly, doesn't ever get us there. Just look at the last few years. Look at the money being spent on an industry called the self-care industry. So has self-care, has the business, has the past 2 decades or so of increase in this industry, increase on our own individual wellness worked? The reality is it hasn't. The General Social Survey done in 2016 asked the question. Here's the question. Taken all together, how would you say things are these days? Would you say that you are very happy, pretty happy, or not too happy? And people responded. And here's the graph. The years since 2010 have not been good ones for happiness and well-being among Americans. Even as the United States economy improved after the Great Recession, happiness among adults did not rebound to the higher levels of the 1990s, continuing a slow decline ongoing since at least 2000. More access to self-care everything has produced less happiness. And we have to look at that. And so what's my remedy? Paul, okay, I kind of agree with you. I hear you. All the apps, all the research, we're not happier. What is the remedy? And every single video, I will talk about either ors. I will talk about how we don't like nuance today. I will talk about how we're fed either ors. Some of you are going to say, well, he's saying self-care is bad. No, that's not what I'm saying. But we live in this world of either ors, left or right, Democrats or Republicans, Christians or non-Christians, pro-choice or pro-life, CNN or NBC. It especially happens in politics and religion. And I want to say there are nuances. And the nuance I want to talk about is this. The highest and best use of your time is not getting well. Let me say it again. The highest and best use of your and my time is not getting well. And taken to its extreme, we could spend 24 hours a day alone getting well. And we're not going to be well. We might do every single thing that the experts prescribe. And the reason why is this. We were built for community. We were built for relationships. Relationships are king and queen. Recently, I spent almost a month on the island of Sardinia, outside of Italy. Here are some photos. And what's intriguing about Sardinia is it's one of the 5 blue zones in the world. There's actually another one about 50 miles from here called Loma Linda. And there's a stark distinction between Loma Linda, California, and Sardinia, which is off the coast of Italy. And this is what it is. In Loma Linda, there's this high concentration of Seventh-day Adventists. No offense to Seventh-day Adventists, but these people are religious about their physical health, right? They don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't do caffeine, they don't do any junk food. They are religious about their diets. And as a result, they live to be old. In Sardinia, I didn't see a gym, no gymnasiums. There is not this focus on one's wellness or health or self-care on Sardinia. You know what there is? A pretty wholesome diet, a pretty simple lifestyle, and incredible relationships. Look at this video I took. I took this video because I was intrigued with this little village and I wanted to show off this restaurant, but look what you see. You see these guys hugging. When you're on Sardinia, you see this relational component, and I'm afraid that all the self-care, everything in the world underplay the importance of relationships, and even more. One of the best ways to get well, you've heard it before, is to go help others. I've been blessed, and I had it modeled to me as a child, to give back to others. There is a reward, there is a drug, if you will, I mean that metaphorically, that's released when we live our life not for ourselves so that we can get well, but for others. And in that reality, I believe we don't just have the necessary component to happiness, but actually the sufficient component. Getting well alone is not going to bring happiness, but some focus on self-care and living in community, living with others, and helping others is what produces what I believe is the life we're all looking for. I thank you for watching. Please hit subscribe, like this video, and we'll see you next time.